Yeah, I'll say, hey guys, so I have Sarah back with me today. She graciously accepted my request to do another video, so thank you so much for coming back, and
Thanks for having me on.
yeah. So basically, you contacted us because I think you were leaning towards being INFJ, right?
Yeah,
But you thought
that's
maybe I could be INFP as well, so
yeah.
so you consented to being on our channel so we could kind of do this like typing thing and for video, and yeah, so we typed you as INFP, and so I think now that makes more sense to you now that you've had,
Definitely.
yeah.
Looking back, I'm not sure how I thought I was INFJ. I feel like I've connected the dots now, and being INFP makes so much more sense.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I thought that now that you kind of, because I think with the first time when we made the video, we were just telling you live basically, right? So you didn't really have enough time to fully process it.
Yeah,
So now I think you probably had time to process it, and maybe we can just discuss like why you might have thought that you were INFJ based on like
yeah.
some of the MBTI stereotypes floating around out there, and now why you are more sure that you are INFP based on like the cognitive functions.
I think because I did try to look at the cognitive functions and to work out which one was more, which one matched me more.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up kind of thinking that all of them apply to me.
Right.
So I got really confused. But then I naturally started to look at the stereotypes, and I don't know, for some reason out there seems to be more negative stereotypes on INFPs, and more unrelatable ones as well. Kind of like like being very indecisive and clingy and emotional and emo,
Right.
which I could not relate to on any level. So I kind of just thought, okay, like I'm probably INFJ. That's probably my ego telling me that I was an INFJ.
Right.
But yeah, I think particularly focusing on the micro expressions helped a lot, and kind of accepting that the stereotypes are definitely not true, and you can be a bit out of the box.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. So was there anything particularly about maybe like an I and FE that you felt fitted with how you would type yourself?
Yeah, so I kind of always assumed that INFPs had this strong principle, which kind of, in a sense, made them stubborn about their opinions and the kind of decisions they made. And I always felt that I was the kind of person that would just go along with whatever the people important to me would say. And I felt like that was FE, like taking into consideration other people instead of my own moral inner principles.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah. And I also felt like I was quite future oriented and on one track, which I thought was NI instead of NE. But I think I only kind of made that judgment on what I wanted to do as my future career,
Right.
which is pretty broad, and I guess INFPs can pretty much know what they want to do as their future career instead of jumping around about it.
Right.
Which I read a lot online as well about how INFPs can be a bit uncertain about what they want to do in the future, which I couldn't relate to really.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense, because I guess the stereotype of NE is like kind of, yeah, exploring all these possible things, but as an INFP you have strong FI, and you might also have very well developed SI as well, right? So even SI could kind of give this very strong preference to what you know is right for you. I think SI kind of looks at past experience, like kind of composites of past experiences to determine like, yeah, what's good, what's not good, and probably along with a strong FI too, right? Like knowing what's right for you. Yeah.
And I think motivation and being like productive, it's not really inclined to certain personality types. Yeah, so you can pretty much be an INFP and know what you want to do in life, and yeah.
Right. So you felt that maybe like the INFJ had this more like kind of focused, determined thing, and the INFP was just kind of like floating around. Like,
yeah, precisely.
Yeah, no, I get why you
Yeah.
have that. That's totally like, yeah, it's totally the perception out there. That's funny.
Being an INTJ, that you kind of defy some of the stereotypes too, or do you feel like you fit the box mostly?
Yeah, I mean, a big one. I think I felt certain about my MBTI type quite early on, even though now I'm glad that like with my greater understanding of the microexpressions and cognitive functions, it still matches up. Because I would be open to being a different type, but I think it does match up. But initially, all of those stereotypes were that like INTJs are kind of like cold and like emotionless, and I related to that in some level because I do think I had difficulties kind of like relating to other people emotionally, but at the same time, I knew that I experienced strong emotions within myself, so I kind of never. I mean, I did fit with the INTJ thing, but I think maybe even that perception of like I am an INTJ and I should be more like this, maybe that affected like how I presented myself and my behaviors until I kind of realized like, okay, I'm a human and I can have emotions and like be INTJ and like and that's fine.
No, I remember reading the INTJ profile a very long time ago and then finding your channel, and you just did not seem cold and emotionless at all, so I was quite surprised, and it kind of made me get to know INTJ, but INTJs better, I guess.
Oh, cool. Actually, that's okay. That's a good segue, because I think you mentioned, too, that partially why you were maybe leaning more INFJ was that upon viewing our channel, you might have related more to me than to Calypso. So that might be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, in different videos, particularly when you're talking about your preferences, I feel like I've always kind of related to what you said more than Calypso, I guess. And I feel like, so I've always had this perception of INFPs being very spontaneous and vibrant and kind of, like, you know, full of life, and I've never really been that way, and, like, that's always been something that I've wanted to be, so Calypso is, like, my idealized version of myself, I guess. Yeah. And, like, the INFJ, like, calm and kind of reserved perception was what I thought I was.
Right.
And I felt like you're quite, like, reserved and calm as well.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think this is interesting. It might perhaps be an Enneagram difference, too. I don't know if you know anything about Enneagram, or... Yeah.
I've taken the test a couple of times, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I got 4 wing 5.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's similar to Calypso?
Actually, I think Calypso is a 4. I'm not sure which wing she is, but I wonder if it lies in the tri-type, because I think she has a 1 in her tri-type. So I don't know if you know about the whole tri-type theory, but...
I don't think I've delved into that, but that's definitely something I want to, for sure.
It's like, I guess there's like 3 centers around the circle, and then... So you have 1 main type, but you also have 1 dominant type within each of those groupings. So I think, I would guess, I have 9 in my tri-type, and that's kind of like how you relate to people, where like 8s are kind of super confrontational and action-oriented, 9s are kind of more like appeasing and harmony-oriented, and 1s are kind of like self-righteous and like stand up for what they believe in. So Calypso has like the 1 in her tri-type, and I have the 9.
Right.
And I would guess that you might have the 9.
Having the 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I definitely have to double check that.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just interesting how, like, cognitively, you probably have similar processes to Calypso, but in terms of, like, maybe your identity and, like, who you feel like you are and, like, your preferences, it could be totally true that, like, me and you have, like, more preferences in common than you and Calypso, right? But yet you still use FINESITE, right?
Yeah, I quite like that. I quite like how broad it is and how it's kind of like, that's the only thing about MBTI which was putting me off about the whole, you know, being put into a box of different types. And I kind of like knowing now that, you know, you can be totally different and still fit in that box.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a good approach to just, like, use it as if these are, like the cognitive functions are the tools that you have to your disposal, right? Yeah. So it's like you are your own being, and you can have your own identity outside of your Myers-Briggs type, but your Myers-Briggs type is just sort of like 4 of the 8 tools that you have to your disposal, and knowing how to use those tools, like, to their highest capacity just probably helps you, but it doesn't, like, necessarily determine, like, everything, you know, all your behaviors.
Yeah, I think especially in terms of things like, just, like, blanket statements like, oh, INFPs are lazy or like unmotivated. Like they can't really define an INFP, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But in terms of INFPs being idealists, I feel like that's a more appropriate statement, I guess, because generally we do tend to be idealists and daydreamers and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Actually, so we've talked a lot about like all the misperceptions. So why do you feel like the cognitive functions of INFP fit for you?
Okay, so I reflected on why I thought I had FE as opposed to FI, but I feel like it was mainly down to learned behaviours when I was a kid, because I remember like trying to model my mum, I guess, and she's very altruistic to a fault and very caring about strangers, and I kind of watched her and grew up and kind of tried to repeat her actions, but I also kind of remember being kind of resentful to myself for doing that and not really feeling that was my natural approach, because I would kind of I wouldn't feel comfortable with I'm trying to not come across as selfish and self-centered. I would know the boundaries and the limits, but I felt like I was pushing myself past those boundaries, kind of. And I feel like as I've grown up, I know where to like put the limits and not be overly altruistic, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I think in terms of NE, yeah, I think I do fit with the cognitive function anymore, but not in terms of, I think, like, looking back at the kind of creative work I do, like, I enjoy writing and poetry and stuff like that, so, yeah, like, my process of writing that, I feel like I do jump around between ideas and, yeah, I guess.
Right. So it's very much like NESI associations, kind of, like, yeah. No.
I'm, like, so, like, caught up about the past and remembering things and memories, like, I've always been like that, so that definitely fits in with me.
Yeah, that's cool. And going back to FI, because I think this might be an important distinction too, because I feel like probably some FE users will feel like they do overextend themselves as well, just maybe even more so because they are FE and it comes naturally to them. So I think that's a truth for many people, and probably especially so young women. Like, as we talk with a lot of people, and I think they all find that, like, oh, I thought I was more FE, or I thought I had higher up FE because I'm trained to do this as like a woman, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
If I would be a bit more masculine, typically stereotypically, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it'd be more like kind of selfish and self-contained and self-determined, and things that you might associate with like how men are raised to be in our society. So yeah.
But as you said in a previous video, like, you can have FI and still be kind and altruistic.
Right.
And, and vice versa as well. You can have FE and still kind of, be self-revolving, I guess.
Right, it can be, not overgiving. I think I think it's probably based on whether you're internally consistent or whether you're externally consistent. Like, probably FE users will be like, okay, I will go this far with you, or at least like healthy FE users who have well-developed boundaries will be like, okay, I'll go this far with you, but then no longer. And FI will be like, it's not based on what's happening externally. I'll just know internally when I've done all that I can, and then I'll have to close myself off.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool. It's different processes, I guess, that can look externally similarly, right? Plus, your body language and micro-expressions were like super INFP throughout this whole video too, which was cool.
I also feel like that, like, learning the micro-expressions has kind of helped me type other people, and I think I found an INFJ. I'm not like totally sure because I'm not a professional, but I feel like getting to know her and knowing the differences between me and her, it really helped her as well.
Cool.
Because she's very, like, not rigid, but more controlled with her actions, and she's very toned down in comparison to me, but we do have many of the same preferences, and
Makes sense. Cool. So I guess you can see like some of the JP difference in that sense, that like she's a little bit more premeditated maybe, And
Yeah.
so would you consider yourself more spontaneous, or how would you?
Like, I wouldn't say spontaneous, but I feel like I'm more willing to like just be a bit more loose and careless, I guess, with my actions and the way I kind of present myself.
Right, you're just more flexible maybe, and
Yeah.
more open to like to like the current situation, kind of. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like Calypso is also a bit like, you know, a bit very open and very flexible in her movements as well.
Yeah. That's really cool. Gosh, is there anything else that we should say on INFJs versus INFPs?
So what would you say, like, the main differences are that kind of pops out at you from knowing these people?
Right, yeah, that's a good one. I think probably a big one is how they speaking pattern. I think a high NI user, especially like even a dominant NI user, it's maybe a little bit more masked with the ENXJs because they do have higher up SE. But with like a dominant NI user, they will usually take time to like fully express their thoughts, and it's there's usually that judger quality of like being very methodical and you can see that it's premeditated in some sense, that they kind of thought about it and they express their thoughts usually fully. Or sometimes if it's so specific that an NI user can't really talk about it, then they might backtrack a little bit to get to this like a really global, broad idea.
Right.
Whereas an NE user, you can just see them like bouncing from like one idea that kind of morphs into this idea and morphs into that idea, and you can see them like creating their ideas or just exploring their ideas externally as they talk.
Yeah,
and I think
actually, I don't think I could go on about one thing for ages.
Right.
I feel like I do tend to bounce around and just keep it interesting and light.
That's so funny because I run this meetup group around MBTI. And at one point towards the end, there was like 4 high NI users. So I think it was like me and like 2 INFJs and like 1 ENTJ. And then there was Calypso. And like all us NI users were talking about like the same subject for like hours. And poor Calypso was like, I think, so distressed by that because she kept trying to like burst in with NE and like explore new topics. And then all us NI users just went back to the same topic.
Wow. I think I definitely lack the attention span.
Right. Well, it's probably not attention span. It's just like our cognitive processes are just totally different, right?
Actually, you kind of want to jump around from other topics because as soon as it pops into our heads.
Yeah. So, thanks again, Sarah, for coming and doing this discussion with us. I think just knowing your experiences, I think this will really help a lot of people, and it's super cool to hear your perspective on it.
Thanks for having me, and honestly, none of this would have been possible without you guys. You really cleared things up for me.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad we could help. So you guys in the audience, let us know if you are undecided between INFJ and INFP, and let us know if you think how you think the actual cognitive functions manifest versus some of the learned behaviors or stereotypes floating around out there. And let us know if this information helped you at all. And thanks so much for watching, you guys. If you like our content, please consider pledging your support on Patreon, as this really helps us out. And we'll see you next time. Bye!